For 26 years, our next speaker has pursued one of the most intriguing and compelling phenomenons in the whole world, crop circles. Perhaps no one has done more to bring these extraordinary physical manifestations to the attention of the entire world.
He's written 4 books and founded Circles Phenomena Research International. He supervised the largest surveillance project of its kind, Operation Blackbird, and appeared on numerous well-known television and radio programs and lectured extensively.
He's acted as a consultant to several European research institutions and received funding from philanthropist Lawrence Rockefeller. His widely seen documentary, Undeniable Evidence, was instrumental in the appearance of the crop circles in theatrical films. The British movie A Place to Stay was written after film director Marcus Thompson was shown this documentary.
He acted as a consultant to this film as well as to the Disney movie Signs, kind of a creepy movie, I thought, very creepy, starring Mel Gibson. And it's been a while since he's presented a public lecture, frankly. He'd stepped back from the field. But he has a great deal to say today, and I believe he is back for the long run. So please welcome to the X-Conference 2009, Colin Andrews.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Cheryl. Well, I was obviously looking at the banner as all of us entered the hotel, and it's really basically why I'm here. As we see, it's basically about lies on the ground. Although I, of course, will not put it like that, and before I actually move an inch here, I will make it very clear to you that Nick Pope is a friend, will remain a friend as far as I am concerned. But I am here to take, well, certainly to give you a different story, to the official explanation of the British government's involvement in the crop circle phenomenon. It's worth remembering, I see Nick out here to the right, he's still smiling, so that's a good sign. It is worth remembering, as I'm sure he has reminded many audience around the world himself, that he is sworn to the Official Secrets Act, and therefore he is not ever in a position to speak to an audience or to the media or anybody else in an unofficial capacity related to his work. His work, he is still sworn to the Official Secrets Act, so therefore what I'm going to postulate here is that the bosses that Nick had when he worked at that desk at Secretariat 2A there in Whitehall, London, he still has. They are there watching, briefing, and I don't know Nick's every day, and that is for him. The reason that I am here is that I know a different story. I know it very differently, and the article that Nick wrote a couple of years ago now, stating the official position, now that needs to be heard loud and clear, the official position of the British government's Ministry of Defence and its involvement or not, the royal household's involvement or not, or the Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's government or not. And according to Nick, really there was basically very little on all fronts. I'm here to tell you that is not the case. And I've brought with me a documentary evidence of it. In one particular area, and I'll point it out as we come through this, it unfortunately requires me to speak a little bit in detail about a couple of individuals, which is really not is not usually my scene. It's not anything I've ever done. Everybody's entitled to opinions, everybody's entitled to their own research, etc., etc. But when it crosses the line and history is rewritten, this is why I was listening carefully to Richard's presentation before me. History is important. Unfortunately, often is the case, history is written by the winner. You listen and interview the losers and you get the history. So that's very often the case. And in this case, it is different. But before we actually move off, I want to take just, if I may, a couple of more minutes than I did last week. I was on a platform with Edgar Mitchell in New York at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and wish to draw the audience there and yours too, if I may, to my good friend, Pat Delgado, who is gravely ill. A good man. I'm sorry about that. I knew this was going to happen. Obviously, a very good friend. We are very good friends. Pat was very much alongside my side in the early days of this research in the early 80s. And as a man who is an electromechanical design engineer for NASA and the Woomera tracking facility, when he and I met one another and started research, there was nobody in the fields when we started the research. In 1983, there was nobody but the farmers. I had a privileged position of a senior official in regional government, central southern England, a local authority called Tess Valley, runs down to the English Channel and up with a couple of counties either side, and was kind of privileged to have access to a number of offices and departments, police departments, and at times through Nick himself, into some other facilities like Boscombe Down, a top secret air establishment in central southern England, where I was inquiring of information that they may or may not be gathering. Well, I just wanted to put this right in front of you that Pat has been deeply involved right alongside me, and he needs our prayers and our thoughts today. So from herein, I will not be referring throughout to Nick. It's not fair on him. He's doing a job. I am simply now relating the official information of which he was using to state the official position. I will drop my glasses so that I can actually see my own screen here. So that basically is where I've come from, just to kind of see the stamp that it isn't a casual, this lost me my job and my marriage and my country. So believe me, I have paid a reasonable price to be in front of you today. Thank you. I didn't say it for that reason at all. I just simply wanted you to see there's been a lot gone into it. 4,000 plus circles, 1,250 individual designs, 50 countries, 1,000 hours of video at least. That plus is very underdone here. 40,000 odd photographs and 10,000 odd documents plus. So that's the background. Well, as we all know, the crop circles evolved from those early days when they literally were. I invented the term crop circle. It is, I've got something under my hat for it. Crop circles, every time I hear it now, it's like, my God, that came out of my mouth. But they were crop circles, simple circles. And now, of course, they're geometries, and the term doesn't do them justice. That's, I will just use your name one more time, Nick. That is the opening, that's the front page of his Nick's report, article stroke report. I mean, it's both things that can be seen on his website and on my own with Nick's permission. Now, what I'm going to be doing is for this presentation comes in two halves. It's a much lighter second half, and I'll be pleased to get there too. It's what I think this is all about. In fact, I'm convinced it's what it's all about, but I'm not here to try and convince you of anything. I'm simply here volunteering to share my information. That's the only reason that I'm here. So what I'm going to do is I've put a yellow box around. I hope this is all very clear on the screen. If you kind of come back, that's it, to the material there. You'll see a yellow box around it. What we'll do is I'll go to the boxes like this, because rather than take the whole report, I'm going to pick out the pieces that are really quite important, like that. So this is the opening, and I'll read it with you in case there is any difficulty anywhere here. This is how it begins. This world exclusive article will deal, this is not mine, this is Nick's, will deal with only one aspect of the mystery, namely official involvement in the phenomenon. Several allegations have been made concerning interest on the part of the Ministry of Defence and the military. But is there any truth to such claims? Have the government been involved? Is there any official interest? This article sets the record straight and lifts the lid on one of the Ministry of Defence's MOD most bizarre X-files. He goes on, and I've just pulled this, the report goes on, I've just pulled this aside. And I agree. As far as I know, this is where it began. The first MOD, that will always mean Ministry of Defence, involvement was in 1985. Lieutenant Colonel Edgecombe investigated a set of circles. Well, I wasn't far away either, nor was the team that I was working with. His report was sent to the Secretariat Air Staff, who did little more than acknowledge it. Because it was sent to the UFO department, it was taken by some researchers, and that will mean, because we were the only ones there, myself, Dr. Meaden, Pat Delgado, and Busty Taylor. Some researchers, to mean military, were interested in the phenomena per se. This confirmed, in some researchers' minds, a link between the two phenomena, UFO, crop circles, when in fact there were many conflicting theories about crop circles. Well, just casually to say on this way past this particular paragraph, is really there were only 3 theories at that time. It is true that developed into many, and there are many more now than there ever were in those days. We were really looking at a natural meteorological vortices of some sort, of Mother Earth, the Earth itself, or extraterrestrial. Those were the kind of 3 niches that the researchers themselves cast out there. And in the early television programs, of which you will have now seen many, that's the kind of place where this debate began. And these are the photographs. This is just a few of the photographs, official photographs, most of which you will have not seen before. This was discovered, but not known when it arrived, remember. This is a set of 5 circles forming a cross at a place south of my town that the Colonel Edgecombe investigated. Discovered 31st of July, not known when it actually appeared. That's worth remembering because we're going to see some stuff here. The photograph taken by the Ministry of Defence, Army Air Corps, Middle Wallop, Hampshire, England. Just over the hill, within 2 miles, 25 days before, with an official Hampshire police investigation, who themselves, in the normal procedure, completed and uploaded a UFO report to the Ministry of Defence. This is not referred to in any of the literature. Was this wonderful elderly senior citizen couple who I interviewed many times. I was the Major Civil Emergency Communications Officer for Central Southern Test Valley Regional Government at this time. And I lived my life surrounded by radio frequencies of one kind or another because the function was to be prepared central regional government response to, at the time, a conflict between the East and West. And therefore, I heard from Bravo Alpha Police Control in Winchester, Hampshire. I just happened to. It's the way my life seems to be, just in the right place at the right time. I'm listening to the police control calling 2 vehicles from 2 neighboring towns to make their way to this location where a 999, 911 in this country, a report from these very flustered and very upset people. As they've traveled along this minor highway behind them, Mr. and Mrs. Jack Collins, they've seen this enormous Ferris wheel stood on its end, just like a circus Ferris wheel, stood on its end, perfectly stationary. Well, what's that got to do with crop circles? It may not have nothing. It may have nothing, but it's in the equation at this point because you'll see over to the top left, 31st of July are the crop circles that Colonel Edgecombe investigated. It should be on the screen here now. Thank you. You'll see up over here is the MOD investigation by Colonel Edgecombe. Over the hill by less than 2 miles, 6th of July, was the Ferris wheel. And down to the right, 6th of July, same day, and it may well be that all 3, remember, we don't know when that 31st of July discovery actually appeared. It was in a very remote place. The others were less remote, and they were seen the same day. So we've got the 6th of July UFO report, 6th of July down near Winchester, and the identical same design in the field. I'm not suggesting for a moment that this is evidence that UFOs cause crop circles. By the end of this presentation, I will be strongly suggesting that we take all of the barriers down, all of the fences separating these range of paranormal kind subjects, and link them into the study of human consciousness. That's where this is. I am convinced of it personally, and I'll bring you along with some more information to come. So that's what happened with regard to the first official investigation. Now just look a little bit more closely at the report that was entered, that is submitted by the Army Air Corps Middle Wallop under this Colonel Edgecombe to the Ministry of Defence in the department that Nick eventually finished up, of course, in charge of. Now look a little bit more closely. You haven't seen that referred to any of the releases from the British government in the recent months. That term, this is only the third word in the first official document, and we've only just started. We see the word UFO, question. That's not being referred to. It wasn't in the report. It wasn't in the releases that came out. Neither was any reference to the police report and investigation into circumstances surrounding these sets of circles that appeared in '85. So this is the Colonel himself saying, UFO, question mark, could it be? Well, it's there. In the aircraft at the time, not referred to in any official literature, was the Aircraft Accident Investigation Officer himself, Major Jarrow of Remy. And all of them. Let's take a step at a time. In the blue there, middle of the screen, there was absolutely no tracks in the wheat. He goes on, we can cut through. You can see all of this on the website, by the way, colinandrews.net. However, there was no way of moving from one to the other. They're saying here from one circle to the other without leaving tracks in the wheat, except by going some 200 yards to the edge of the field and then back down another main farrow, meaning tractor tire mark. One of the smaller holes, meaning circles, was completely isolated. And ending this, they all sign on to this, signed by, though, Edgecombe. None of us could offer any reasonable explanation. And so my question, before we move on to the next part of this, is that the fact that there was no reasonable explanation, the Ministry of Defence had the documents from their own department here at Middle Wallop and a police report saying, but this happened over the hill. Why was there not an official investigation into the UFO? This word, by the way, I'm going to say it. Let's just have it all out because history is important. I'll not go too far with this. There's much more to the story. I have been personally encouraged by a number of government departments, this side of the water and the other side of the water, to remove from my vocabulary, you'll see more of this in a moment, the word UFO when we are talking about crop circles. It's like somebody somewhere is determined to separate the two. Separate them. There's something much more nervous in the underfield, the low-lying, invisible field of government related to the UFO than there appears to be in the crop circles. I think the crop circles have basically, unless we can reconstitute our research, is seriously damaged. And we'll get there in a moment. It's like humans tend to do. We kind of shoot ourselves in the foot an awful lot. Okay. There were 4 official questions. This is the report, the official report, raised in Parliament, and answers were given. Yes, they were. Recorded in Hansard, the official British government record of questions and answers raised in the Houses of Parliament. Let's read this together. I'll read this for you. Questions in Parliament, 11th of July 1989. Mr. Teddy Taylor, that's a member of Parliament, representing his people in his community, to ask the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries and Food, this is a department in the British government, How many reports has he received, I beg your pardon, of the flattening of circular areas and cereal fields in the southwest and other areas of England respectively, and if he will make a statement. This is often a tool, by the way. Please, I stand to be corrected. We do have a question time here. This is a tool often for the government to place on the record something it wishes to place on the record. And this is how it's done. And this is Mr. Ryder coming back now for the department. The flattening of circular areas, so this is the bit that goes in the record, in cereal fields is a phenomenon known to occur from time to time. It is confined to winter cereal crops, not true, and is more relevant in dry seasons, not true. But we have no arrangements for recording such occurrences and therefore cannot comment on their frequency, not true. The cereal fields have come back to Parliament again. This is the official British record of those questions. 11th of July, 89, the same Member of Parliament, Mr. Teddy Taylor, to ask the Secretary of State for Defence what progress has been made in the inquiries initiated by the Army helicopters based in the southwest in investigating the origin of flattened cereal areas of wheat, and if he will make a statement. We need something on the record. And so the Ministry of Defence comes back, is not conducting any inquiries into the origins of flattened circular areas of crops. However, we are satisfied that they are not caused by service helicopter activity. That, I believe, is true. Well, this might be what they never ever wanted you to see, and I hope I don't take risks in putting it out here. I was the civilian who was working with these people that have been denied in British Parliament. You'll see the top there. I have many photographs that complement these. I'm just showing you representative per site. So you have, along the top there, taken by the British Army, their Army helicopters. At the bottom, I spent most of one day in the top secret air establishment of Boscombe Down, going through with their, of course, I was never let out of their sight, but going through the official negatives. These are not people that are just casually going out and snapping their own photographs of interest, as you and I would do, as I'm sure we do, when we're flying from one city to another. So this is taken by, this is the current name. It was not what was there when I was there. The Aeroplane and Armament Experimental Establishment, A and AEE, at Boscombe Down in southern England. This happened to be at the bottom, the design that many got to know as Mother is Crying, as Mother Earth is. This was a pattern that the Native Americans in particular reacted very strongly to. I had people, friends of mine and family, who were presenting the documentation of the aerial photography to Native people around the world, trying to get their feedback. I think this is what a lot of this is all about. Man-made or not, let's get there further down the road. This particular design meant a lot to a lot of the Native people, and the MOD and services associated were taking photographs of them. Here it is again, top left. The photograph also, the top right. There's stories to all of these, and we don't have time to get there. I have to say, because I'm sure there's going to be some comeback on some of this, I have to make sure that you know that the overlay on that right-hand side photograph is my research insertion. That's what I've looked at closely and have marked it up in an appropriate manner for internal research. In other words, that was not on, those that were surrounded in blue, was not on the official photograph. Well, I've got lots to raise, and there's more than I can say, again, in the time available here. We've got a lot to get through, but I do have some things to say. The top left-hand photograph is just one taken. We have movie too. I was with a group of researchers at Alton Barnes, Wiltshire, England, in the mid-90s, when two Army Gazelle helicopters approached us as we were looking at these particular crop markings, And during a whole sequence of what appeared to be, I'll never prove anything, but what appeared to be the helicopters wishing us to move away. They were coming down. Some of you will have seen this on television. It's been on Sightings and a number of television programs, filmed in my presence, where the helicopters come within feet of our heads, and the hedgerow, the hedges nearby were bouncing down and hitting the vehicle that we were stood alongside. They were that close. And the intention seemed to be very clearly it was either extraordinarily dangerous flying in a public area, or they wanted us out of there. Well, a second helicopter came in as the first one backed away, moved to the back of this field that you can see, and there is an orb, one of these orbs that keeps coming up, these small UFOs, whatever they are. And this orb is in front of the helicopter. I would imagine, by looking at all of the sequences of footage of many times, it seems like one of the pilots is saying to the other guy, come right, you're there, you're right, you're there. We're seeing this and filming it too, from about probably 800 yards, I would think. And then in one frame of that film, which again can be seen on the internet, the orb has gone and is now behind the helicopter. And the pilot doesn't really know whether he's going to back up over it. He's being told it's behind him, very obviously by the manner in which he's moving that aircraft, or to swivel his aircraft and to see it that way, because it's now behind him. Well, the official footage that we recorded, and this was a person contracted to NASA that I was with at that time, and other British American researchers too, that footage was sent to the head, no less, of Vivian, the head of all land forces in Great Britain, at Wilton in Wiltshire for analysis. That was an official investigation into a UFO over crop circles. That has not been released under the Freedom of Information, this new era of honesty that we're now apparently looking at. And I doubt that it will, frankly. And I doubt if there's an awful lot that's going to come out that was in or has been in the official archives. So there's my question with regard to the official report. Where is that? Is it coming? What else was in there that is not out and will not be coming? So history is important. I think before we just go on to these others, we are all being told in the Western world right now, and I hope to God that this is true, we are now living in a period, let's cut the past behind. We got here just about with lies and deception on every level of daily life, every level. Every 7 minutes we watch an advertisement built upon lies and distortion. Every political speech is spin and distortion. And you can go on like this. You can look at your movies, every other program, 70 channels at a time. It's all artificial nonsense. So we are living in a time that is crucial to our very survival. And this better be the time when the truth is laid out exactly as it is for all of us to see, and for all of us as individuals to face the mirrors and to clear our backgrounds, our names, and the skeletons in our closet, because times that are coming are going to be tough. But we can and we will make it, only with one, I believe, precondition, that we learn fast what love and respect is. Well, on the right-hand side, this is a whole lecture, and I'm really not time to go here, but just for the record, that Operation Blackbird was a surveillance operation central southern England. Many of you know about it, where BBC and Nippon Television co-funded the operation. We were on British Army, MOD land, and several groups of military were involved in the actual surveillance operation. The guys you can see on that top right-hand side uniformed personnel from REME in Aldershot were attached to the visible public Operation Blackbird. The guys you're seeing down to the left, actually, that is not perfectly, what I've just told you is correct. What I was about to say is not factually accurate. To the bottom left-hand side was an operation which was secret at the base of Silbury Hill in Wiltshire, which there were a number of units involved. One unit, I've had this from, I'm still in touch with some of these guys, who are telling me that they were crawling over other forces in the fields around Silbury Hill that they had no idea that were involved in any operation at all. So you had units following units. There was extraordinary stuff going on within miles of Operation Blackbird, that surveillance operation. What they captured was you see on the bottom right-hand side was a very large UFO. I mean, it was a very large, light illuminated object. Well, we'll come back to that one. Mr. Colvin, to ask, we're back now to the British Parliament. These are now the last two, I believe, questions that have been officially asked. To ask the Secretary of State for the Home Department now we're to the Home Department, if he will call for a report. This is actually really rather important. From the Chief Constable, which is the Chief of Police of Hampshire and Wiltshire, two counties, on their investigations into the cornfield circles in Hampshire and Wiltshire. What is the estimated cost of these investigations, and if he will make a statement? Mr. Hurd, this is from Parliament, for the government. I understand from the Chief Constables of Hampshire and Wiltshire that there have been no investigations, we're back to that again, into the cornfield circles by their officers. 17th of October 1989, Mr. Colvin, the Member of Parliament, to ask the Secretary of State for Defence whether any official assistance has been given by service personnel to civilians. Now, this is me. You can put Colin Andrews' name right on there. To civilians investigating the origin of cornfield circles in Hampshire and Wiltshire, and if he will make a statement. We want it on the record. Mr. Archie Hamilton, this is for the British government. I am not aware of any, that's interesting wording though, I am not aware of any official assistance having been given by service personnel to civilians investigating the origins of crop circles. See those photographs? Those are photographs taken from the headquarters by myself in the presence of senior police officials in Hampshire Police, the very chief that have told now the head of state, the Queen, that's who you're speaking to in Parliament, to the British public, to the members of Parliament, and to the Prime Minister, who was then Margaret Thatcher, that these official departments are not involved. These photographs, and they're actually some rather important ones, were taken by Hampshire Police, and I obtained those from the police themselves whilst I was getting an extraordinary amount of cooperation, for which I am thankful. But I am saying to you, we need this recorded with honesty and accuracy, because this phenomenon is going somewhere. You have not heard the last of the crop circle phenomenon. And so the top left appeared after a very bizarre series of circumstances, which again we're going to touch upon in a moment. The bottom right is the first pictogram ever to appear on planet Earth in 1990, recorded by Hampshire Police aerial surveillance aircraft from Leon Solent in Hampshire. Well, here is that civilian researcher, Colin Andrews, in the blue car, actually photographed by the very surveillance aircraft that I had asked could be made available. I don't think the evidence comes much stronger than that. Here's the civilian, here's Hampshire Police surveillance aircraft, and their official photograph. And another site on the right-hand side. I'm going to reiterate, because it's important for me to do this. I do have the greatest of respect, I think Nick knows this, for Nick. This is not a matter of Nick Pope giving inaccurate, untruthful information. I wanted to reiterate it because it's not a situation for any of us have time to get personal on this. It isn't where it's all coming from. He was given the wrong information. Right, so we move on. Now we're back to the Wiltshire police officer who told Parliament, head of state, Prime Minister, and all the rest, no involvement. We're not doing anything here, we're not involved. Well, you see the top left-hand photograph. A man called Roy Lucas, a farmer in central southern England, again, near Avebury in Wiltshire, witnessed a rapidly spiraling cone of moisture. It appeared to be moisture, although he did describe it as smoke. It does seem as if it was an atmospheric gradient that squeezed the water molecules out of the air, and there was a spiraling column of mist, which then exploded out, suddenly and dissipated, to be followed by crop circles appearing in that field. The phenomena jumped the field, and they appeared there too. This is, on the top left, is a recorded photograph by Wiltshire police who had their own aircraft over the top to take those photographs. Top right, same in an adjacent field. The bottom left-hand photograph are circles. Remember, these are all simple circles compared to today's situation, and there may well be very rational explanation for that. We will get there. These circles appeared in the field underneath that little board. You know, I said the UFO that had been filmed by a secret army surveillance operation around Silbury Hill. And that's the official Wiltshire police photograph of the circles in the field that was underneath that orb. And another one to the right. This is the part of the lecture that I'm not going to enjoy particularly. I will not enjoy this, but I feel now we have to put this straight. These questions were, the yellow box, remember, every time comes from the official report that Nick put together. These questions were inspired by researchers Paul Fuller and Jenny Randalls, who had contacted their members of Parliament, and you saw that in those questions, and asked them to raise the matter. The answers would have been drafted by officials within the respective government departments. In the case of the two questions answered by the defence ministers, this meant that civil servants in Secretary AS had drafted the response. I am going to be very careful here and say that all I'm going to say is that I find it extraordinarily curious that these are the two names that have moved forward into the scene to have those questions allow the British government to put an official record in place, which was then moved on to Nick to put out publicly. And this is why. Intriguing that these are the same individuals who were at a senior level in Bufora in Great Britain. This is the MUFON equivalent in Great Britain, the British UFO Research Association, who have been subject to legal actions against them in the United Kingdom for various libel and character attacks on UFO researchers. Isn't this curious? Just like Richard was saying here earlier, from the old school, from those within who you believe are researching crop circles and yet are taking every step possible to have that word UFO removed from the scene. These people, and I'm going to show you evidence, had lawsuits taken against them at the most serious kind for the attacks placed in public on Gordon Crichton of FSR, Flying Saucer Review, ex-British diplomat, Harry Harris, a solicitor in Great Britain, very instrumental and behind the scenes very useful, helpful to UFO researchers who wanted legal help. Stanton Friedman in this country, Pat Delgado, my old mate, who's back in hospital right at this moment, and myself. Because we don't need to dredge this, I need to make the points. We need to know where this is coming from. So I'm going to read this to you. Dear Sir, this was to Paul Fuller, one of the names. We have been instructed by Colin Andrews, and I've taken my case because I don't want to get into deep water on other people's cases. I can stand by this, who has handed to us a copy of your letter of the 4th of September 1988 to Miss Anne Druffel. You will know that name too, here in America. Our client does not wish to deny your rights to criticize his research into the phenomena of circles in cornfields or the conclusions that he has reached from, the client has reached from his research. However, there are passages in your above letter which are clearly defamatory. In particular, we refer to your allegation that our client has made claims about himself which are patently untrue. In other words, I'm a liar. That he has lied, that he has been selective in his use of evidence. That's serious. Unless we receive information from you within 7 days of the date hereof that you have written to Ms. Druffel, retracting the above allegations, and further that you undertake not to communicate any such allegation to third parties at any future time, we have instructions to commence proceedings against you for libel without further notice. That's what came about. Briefly, a full to me personally, by that man that has raised this in the British Parliament, Paul Fuller, apologising unreservedly. Well, I'm not going to rub this by reading all that through. It's here for the record. He withdraws it. He's very sorry. I am who I said I am. I am the chief electrical engineer for that part of central southern England. And Pat Delgado, who both these characters had said never had a record of working for NASA. You saw the evidence there in Woomera and other space projects that Pat was referred to. These individuals have an agenda. 2 newspaper cuttings, and we'll move on. This is the heaviest part of the presentation. Apologies to Stanton Friedman. This is from the Manchester Evening News and solicitor Harry Harris. And there's another whole series of it at the bottom. We could go infinitum. I'll just read this piece, and then we'll move on. So a splendid long diatribe against Friedman and Harris was compiled by Bufora's directors of investigations. Be very careful with all this stuff. And fired off to a member of the staff of the Manchester Evening News. And this newspaper duly carried a big article about it, all in October 28, 89. Both the newspaper's article and Randall's letter, of which we have a copy, are splendid stuff in the usual vitriolic style to which we are by now accustomed. As a result of the appearance of the newspaper article, a writ was jointly issued by Miss Stanton Friedman and Harry Harris, and High Court proceedings for defamation followed against the 3 named parties, Jenny Randalls, Bufora, and the Manchester Evening News. Upon the termination of these High Court proceedings, the following statement was issued by the newspaper. We don't need to go there. It's done. But I'm just saying to you, you know what I've said to you. Right, we're back now to the yellow, which represents the official report. Aircrew, like everyone else, are curious. It is true. And some plan routine flying training over circles that appeared, that they have heard about, that have appeared. And that in mind, pages 73 and 82 of Circular Evidence, which was Pat Delgado and Colin Andrews' first book, shows Army Gazelle helicopters over the circles at Westbury, Wiltshire in 1987. The photos, pages 74 and 75, of which you are looking at there, was taken by the aircrew in this helicopter. Well, I think by now we know it's a little bit more than a lot more, because I was there. I mean, I was there. This is not guys that are flying around in helicopters just snapping the occasional picture, of which I am sure that does happen too. Now this is really kind of getting to some meat here. The official report says, I had to dispel that the media coverage of the issue was stifled by the use of a D notice. Well, a D notice in Great Britain is a tool used by the British government, Minister of Defence in particular, to stop the media in hard print, radio or television basically at the throwing of a switch if they consider national security is at risk. I think most people understand there has to be such a tool. But I am told, through the report, that this did not happen. They've never attempted to do that. And in fact, the D-notice is no longer in use. Well, what you're looking at there is again Operation Blackbird, where the British Army, a small contingent, helped us on the site of this surveillance operation in 1990. You see that vehicle there with the radio mast? That's the media, one of many media that attended one particular day when circles appeared below the surveillance equipment and had something which the best we could tell through binoculars, something odd, we couldn't make out what it was, in the center of these circles. The surveillance cameras were there filming them. The first of the media to turn up to report on this was GWR Radio at Swindon in Wiltshire. And you can see their high-rise mast has been pulled out. They're going on air to transmit what they're looking at. And they were stopped. A D-notice was issued, contrary to what you've been given here. A D-notice was issued to take off air one of the best-known television and radio personalities in Great Britain, Dave Barrett. He was on air with GWR when they sent their vehicle out to cover this particular event. And here is his letter to me. Hi Colin, I now live abroad, so it's not easy to contact me by phone, but please feel free to email me if you need anything else. As I recall it, it was somewhere near Alton Barnes. Yes, it was, just up the road. A crop circle had been discovered with some mysterious item found in the center of it. We sent the radio car out, but were prevented from viewing it, and a D-notice stopped us reporting on it, and it was when I was with GWR in Swindon. D-notice. The government did not want you to see what was going on in those fields that they were very deeply involved in at that time. And I would suggest in departments that were not reporting to Nick and that he knew nothing of. I had to deny a further denial here. I had to deny that the crash of a Harrier jump jet was caused by energies of crop circles and that they caused spontaneous firing of the pilot's ejector seat. This is an interesting case, which incidentally, I neither would suggest that the two are necessarily tied together. But let's just, for the reasons here, to keep an open mind. It was a very unusual case. The GR5 jump jet that Britain's been so kind of well known for its extraordinary aircraft was on a test flight from the southeast of the country across central southern, checking in with Boscombe Down. You've already heard that name, top secret air establishment. Here we are. You'll see it there. It takes its course from the right-hand side of the screen through the center to the left. Coming from the southeast, it's on a test flight. It checks in with, on the blue dot there, it's overflown 5 circles of the identical times you saw this all started with in 1985, that Edgecombe reported on. It's gone directly over the top of those at the end of the runway at Boscombe Down. It makes its very last radio transmission, that poor guy, the pilot, with Boscombe Down on the purple E, that continues across the landscape to the left, just to the south of Stonehenge, by about 4 miles, heading west. Something happened. There is speculation which I will come to. Something happens over another set of circles, this time with rings, and the aircraft kicks left by a few degrees, and now contact with the pilot is lost. An American aircraft, an SOS went out. Nationwide, air-wide, ground, a full sea-land search ensued. And an American aircraft came in and saw this aircraft and shadowed it and found that the pilot was missing. The Harrier was flying on, the pilot was gone. And so it continued to fly until it ran out of fuel and dumped into the Atlantic Ocean, many hundreds of miles further down the road. Well, this is my only point. As interesting a case as this is, I was interviewed by 2 of the investigating officials into this inquiry. simply because there were designs there, they had no idea what happened, and they still do not. And my only question, and I'm not questioning Nick, I'm questioning, say, the report, is that to deny it had any involvement, when the official verdict, you'll see in red there, was left open. There was speculation that a small lamp had fallen off the dash, that it activated the ejector seat, thrown the pilot through the canopy, etc., etc. It may have been that. We will never know. But to deny it when all options are open, there are energies, however this speculative and crazy this might be, and I'm not suggesting that it killed this guy at all, but that aircraft happened to come into line precisely on the alignments we've seen with these circles for many years. Some of us will call them ley lines. They're alignments that run across that part of the world on which a lot of the simple designs continue to appear. And he came right on to line with it. Right. So we're back. We can tail it down a little bit here. This was my first actual... I had already corresponded up through to the Queen, to the Nicholas Ridley, Under Secretary of State in the Thatcher cabinet. But there was a lot of internal work going on with my Member of Parliament, as you can see here, David Mitchell, Sir David Mitchell. This is when we were looking, still being denied, by the way, everything that came out of the official sources in England through the media was that they're not involved. Well, I mean, here I am showing them around the circles now, and then I'm invited to show Prince Charles and Diana around, and it goes on and on and on. But it isn't put out there for what it's worth. So, here we go. I don't think we need to read it. You can, and it's on my website for anybody who wants to. This is my Member of Parliament saying he was glad to look around the circles. It gives them a first-hand knowledge of the lodging that some people are referring to, the meteorological possibilities versus the somewhat more exotic possibilities of which I was probably the main proponent. And again, David Mitchell is saying, thank you, Colin, for showing me this. This is now very clear. We need to take this up, and I'll pursue it as far as I need to go. And so this is where we come to. As promised, I have now been to see David Trippier, Minister of State at the Department of the Environment, and I've had a useful discussion with him and his Chief Scientific Advisor. I must say that over the passage of time, whilst you have investigated this phenomenon, you have managed to do so in such a responsible way that the whole matter is now being viewed in a much more serious and scientifically interesting way. Having discussed it with the Minister, he has agreed that an approach should be made to the Natural Environmental Research Council, that's a department within the government, to see if they will take an official interest in what is going on and support some further research. As you know, and he goes on to say, it's really going to be up to them and what kind of serious science can support this. Finally, Sir David Mitchell comes back to me and says, finally I approached Sir Geoffrey Howe. Now we're up to Deputy Prime Minister, okay? This is not anything that isn't happening. To Sir Geoffrey Howe, Deputy Prime Minister, to ask him to indicate which minister should have the responsibility, and has pointed me in the direction of the Department of the Environment, from whom I am again getting unsatisfactory responses, which has led me to ask to see the minister personally. The Queen, Head of State in the United Kingdom, and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. The Duke of Edinburgh is seen below. This is now, incidentally, an extremely sensitive situation in Great Britain, and I will, of course, in respecting my homeland, be making my way through this with respect and carefully just stating some facts. I had to deny allegations, this is the official report we're back to, I had to deny allegations that the Queen and Prime Minister Thatcher had expressed interest in the phenomenon, and that various high-level meetings were taking place to consider the subject. Well, I think you've already seen some, but we've got to go a step further here. This is a letter to me from the Queen, written by Julian Lloyd, who is her land agent. That was the... Sorry, what have I done? Whatever happens now, this is my fault. Sorry, this is not my computer, so I'm... Okay, I think we're back on course. Just coming in closer so that you can see it. This is to me. Thank you for your letter of the 2nd of May, which has been shown to the Queen. Her Majesty, just look at this. Her Majesty has taken an interest in the mysterious crop circles for some time and was subsequently sad to hear, and she goes on. That's sort of a more personal thing with the situation. Circular Evidence, the first book ever written on crop circles, was selected specifically for the Royal Reading List. This is the Queen's Summer Reading List in 1989. Such is the level of interest in the royal household. The Duke of Edinburgh writes to my colleague Pat Delgado, the Duke of Edinburgh has asked me to write and thank you for your letter of the 28th of October and also for sending His Royal Highness a copy of your newsletter, Crop Circles, which we were publishing up until a short time ago. Prince Philip is grateful for your thought in sending it and would like to take out, this always makes me smile, an annual subscription for the newsletter. Could you bill us in due course? The Duke of Edinburgh, to myself, has asked me to write to thank you for your letter of the 23rd of October, which His Royal Highness was most interested to read. Prince Philip would certainly like you to update him with significant developments on the circles. Thank you. This is the official first £6, which is $12, for the subscription of the newsletter from the Duke of Edinburgh. And this one I have to be, again, rather careful, as you can see. When Stanton Friedman, gets up with those letters of his and there's all that blacked out stuff all over it, I'm just about to do the same thing. I was instructed from Great Britain to remove immediately a document from this presentation and from my website. One document of the many that I would like you to have seen, which of course I have respected. Legal action will be taken if the entire contents of this letter are shown in public. Remove from your website immediately. I've snipped that out and I'm about just to read this little piece because this is the piece, actually, anyway, is all I feel we're entitled to know. I am replying to your letter to the Queen about the circles phenomenon. Since I have been taking a rather particular interest in the subject, we were both, that is the Queen and I, we were both fascinated by something I'm not allowed to talk about, the account of the, which is something else I'm not allowed to talk about. Here's another one. A different source, so cleanse thou'st mind, this is somebody else. I was staying with my uncle, who I'm not allowed to tell you, this weekend, and while I was scouting around in his study, my eyes alighted upon a much-thumbed copy of my first book, Circular Evidence. I'm not allowed to talk about that. Electronics business, and wondering whether it was his interest in electronics or agriculture that induced him to buy the book. I picked it up. A letter fell out, addressed to, I'm not allowed to say, from Prince Philip, saying something along the lines, thought you might be interested to see this. If it's a hoax, he's referring to crop circles, it is an elaborate in the extreme. And I am inclined to believe it is due to some kind of invisible force. He then said he'd never been able to entirely dismiss the Uri Geller phenomena, and I have spent time with Geller, by the way, on that. And could the two have anything in common? That was about it. I just thought you might like to know that. Prime Minister Thatcher. The letter's there, and there are others that you can view. I am afraid it is not possible for the Prime Minister to comment on this publication, Circular Evidence, although I am sure she will note it with interest. However, I will pass it to the Ministry of Defence for information. These were the first pages of the official report that went to the Cabinet in the Margaret Thatcher government, of which I was the author. Here. There were meetings taking place, there was information being considered, and it was being considered as to how far and with what funds should be placed upon an official investigation. Incidentally, Some of the photographs you're seeing, and there are more pages to this report, were actually taken from the aircraft that it was denied that was up there, showing the interest that they were not involved in. So those are, in other words, military photographs. Letter to Lord Dulverton for Colin Andrews from Nicholas Ridley, the Secretary of State in Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's cabinet. Dear Tony, this is to be passed on to me. I promise to report to you anything that my officials could turn up on the mysterious circles in cornfields. As it happens, a recent issue of the magazine Weather reports a possible theory. I attach a copy of the article for which you may find interesting. The article argues that the effect can be explained as a meteorological phenomenon, in part associated with local topology. My chief scientist is rather skeptical of the exact explanation, although, interestingly, allowed it to move forward into official sources as being the explanation. The British government's official, as far as I understand it, still is that the real kind part of this phenomenon is actually meteorological. And he continues and ends here, I believe. This again is that same letter being forwarded to me from that source. But believes the argument has some promise. Hopefully, there will be a lively discussion in subsequent issues. In the report that you sent me, Mr. Andrews has promised a substantial investment to look at a number of other, more exotic explanations. But he might be well advised to look at the possibility of a natural explanation, and this is the one that has gone forward into the official documentation. Okay. A letter now to the Member of Parliament, Sir David Mitchell, from the government's chief scientific advisor, Dr. Fisk, who I also supplied reports. Dear David, thank you for your letter of the 3rd of July on the topical phenomenon of circles in wheat fields. That was before the name was invented. And he says, an issue which deserves, as he has suggested, some academic rigor. NERC, the National Council that we heard to earlier, is indeed charged with carrying out fundamental research on natural phenomena, notice that, and a properly cast grant application on the topic would be considered. Whether the proposal won support would depend entirely on the quality of the science put forward as judged by peer review. The nature of that science would determine whether it got the funding. Okay, we're going to lighten this up. Thank you very much. We're right on cue for part 2, which is going to come very fast at you here. And I'll just end with the last statement in that official report of NICS. In conclusion, he says, I hope this article has clarified the position concerning the official involvement in the crop circle mystery. But I hope now it has. Part 2. Conscious circles. Reference to the official file on crop circles now being closed by the MOD. I'm about to show you why I believe that if it has, and I believe that it has, some other department somewhere, much like the Aviary CIA undercover operation in this country, should be going on. These are some of the reasons why research must continue. On the 24th of August, this was not the first, but a number of personal experiences that I witnessed myself that leaves me absolutely not wondering, but knowing there is an extremely extraordinary component to this mystery. On the 24th of August 1986, I was in a light aircraft with Busty Taylor, you can see just here, flying over Chesford Head in Hampshire. Busty looked to me, and he said, and we've been talking about this up until just, well, one day ago when I was preparing this, talking again to Busty every other day. He said to me, wouldn't it be something, Colin, to get every circle, every design we've seen before, overlaid in one pattern? What you're looking at is all we had seen up to that time, many of these repeating. simple circles would repeat many times. Early 86 was the first circle with a ring, repeated many times. The bottom right-hand side, 85, this was the Edgecombe investigation, repeated many times. And now across the world, many times. 3 in a straight line, 2, but mostly single circles, simple designs. The following day, right there, just where the aircraft was when he said it, below his aircraft, with now Omar Fowler from Spain in his aircraft, was everything we had ever seen, overlaid just as he had said. Busty Taylor did not make that design. I did not make that design, but there it is. Now, one can laugh at this. That's real coincidental. That's like how many times winning the lotto here. This is like every pattern, not one, not two, all the patterns we had seen over those years overlaid into exactly what he asked for. But not just that. Below the aircraft where he said it the day before. Whoa. That's weird. Well, in 1987, this is a ring reported from a pilot flying over. We investigated. We did all the things we usually do. I went back later alone. Reasons we don't need to talk about. I went back for a measurement. And I stood a and I prayed. Now, I don't go to church regularly. It's not a center of my being, but I believe in something beyond. I believe in something else up there. Yes, I do. But I prayed, and I said, please, God, give me a clue as what is happening. I heard a sound within 7 feet of where I was, stood alone. As I still had my hands together, suddenly there's this sound. A sound you're going to hear a few times in the next few minutes. I've got about 10 minutes, I believe, now to run. You're going to hear this sound. It's come up time and time again, the same sound. And that reacted to my thoughts. Believe it or not, I'm not here to convince you. This is why I'm still stood in front of you 26 years later. 1988, south of my town in Andover, Hampshire, a circle with 2 rings. Well, you see, there it is. We went there, we investigated it, we went home. That's where I lived, in Andover, just up there, in Hampshire. This particular night, with my marriage in tatters, I'm laid on the bed, I'm meditating. And I thought, again in my head, I know this, I remember so vividly. I tried to think of a pattern that had not appeared before, knowing what had happened with Busty. I thought of this pattern. I thought, well, we've never seen a Celtic cross. And I prayed. And it was just bizarre with the sound. I prayed for this design, which you can see up over here, that has never been seen in the fields anywhere. And if anybody knows of it, please let us know. Not anywhere. Back in 1988, that appeared anywhere on our planet. I prayed for it, and I said, as close to my home as possible. That was the same night. That's the circle with the 2 rings that you just saw the picture. Now, something else has arrived next to it. It's exactly the pattern that I prayed for. And you see that field boundary? That's the closest cereal crop to my home that was still available for whatever's going on to record its artwork. That is a fact. And in addition, right down here, it might seem trivial, a minor point, I don't think it is that in the detail, the ground detail, which we, of course, got back to have a look at, were the very details that permitted us scientifically in hard physical evidence to counter the Doug and Dave claim of 1990. When they claimed to have made everything, we knew we had something in that design that appeared mysteriously that night to counter it, and we did. We can go into that question time if you like. Very quickly now, because we're really running down, and I know I've got a little bit here to show you. This is the document I'm not allowed to show you, and I still have not shown you in its full entirety. That's an official police photograph by Hampshire. That's the civilian Colin Andrews down there in the blue motor car. Something very strange indeed if you think you've just heard it. This, I know, I was with Edgar Mitchell last weekend. We were presenting at the Institute in New York. And I do realize this, that when the reality in which we all kind of carve out for ourselves, our own rationale for reality is individual. And I know that when you hear the sound, and then a crop circle appears, and then this, and then that, it's kind of really challenged. And there comes a point where you can just simply turn it off, because it's the trying to kind of rationalize it all. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of that. So here goes. And I know that my credibility is on the line, but this is where we need to go with this. This really basically is why I'm back. This is what happened. And this is why, for reasons I cannot tell you, this letter has been withdrawn from the internet. This is the team that was there, that was sat in the larger of the circles at the left. This is also a Hampshire Police photograph here. We, after Operation White Crow, which was also a surveillance operation, this team here that you're seeing, plus 3 photographs I'm afraid I couldn't get to supply. There's not a problem, I just didn't have time to get it for you. This is the team that went there, and we sat in that circle just after midnight. Surveillance operation is winding down. We had nothing to show for it, basically. And we sat there. Now, one of these people is Rita Gould, over the far right-hand side there. Is known in Great Britain. She's been researched many times by the psychic research people there for manifestations of all kinds. I mean, she's got an extraordinary kind of record. She was one of them. She had asked if she could come, and we were happy to have her aboard. I mention it because it might be relevant. I don't know. So we're there. Just after midnight, my old friend turned up. The sound that you are about to hear, that has been heard now in many very bizarre circumstances, and it did some strange things. It came in from the east. It moved, it went around the group of us, as if knowing precisely we were there. We kind of huddled in because you'll hear that it is a rather bizarre electrostatic crackling kind of sound, and we kind of hustled in like children, like, what the hell is going on? And it's buzzing around us stereophonically. I've got one bad ear. It wasn't so bad then, it is now. But the stereophonics was still very, very relevant. It was buzzing around us. And then it came back, and it's kind of stopped over there. And we're all watching it. All of us are witness to this. It stopped there. There's a dramatic temperature drop. We all felt that. We had a weather station on site. We had a meteorologist, head of the Tornado Storm Research Organization, Dr. Terence Meaden. He was not in that circle that night. He was responsible for the weather station, confirming, as all this is going on, the temperature took a nosedive. The barometrical pressure, atmospheric pressure, dropped off the chart, same time. And this sound is interacting with us. And then something which I have never witnessed in my life, I probably never will again, and the man that's in hospital right now is my witness. Pat Delgado went up to that sound as the rest of us were clustered together, and he literally went backwards at an angle which he should have fallen, at about 45 degrees, and was dragged back towards the sound. He put his hand out to me like this, his face was like, and he said, literally, Colin, Colin. And I went across the circle, witnessed by these other people, got a hold of him, and the both of us were dragged back towards the sound until I made every effort, not knowing what in the world was happening, pulled him. Physically, it was like pulling a bubble, 2 bubbles apart. It was like, whoa. And we were free. We came back to the others. The sound moved back to the east, but stayed there. We could hear it for several hours and recorded it. There's more to be said about that. I'm on to 5 minutes, so I'm going to run it right through now. This is the sound. It's been analyzed many times. It's 5.2 kilohertz in orbit frequency. Sorry, I'm just not conversant with this mouse. Here we go. These are just sound bites, but it was continuous. This is slowed down by 50%. we move on. And the following morning, George Wingfield has posted his official report, of which also went to high levels of government after this, is on my website if you want to check this out, because we're running out of time. George Wingfield audibly spoke to the sound. This is a guy that's tried to be so credible over so many years, approaching this from a scientific angle. It's hard sometimes to kind of just say it as it is. We have reached that time. George said to the sound, "Could you please make us a circle?" Well, the next day, those are also Hampshire police photographs. Right over the hill was a new circle. Now, Pat Delgado, this was just weeks ago before he became so ill, on a hunch, went back to Chesfoot Head. We were in touch with one another. I live in Connecticut now. Pat still lives very close to Chesfoot Head, Operation White Crow, where we've just been looking at. He went back and recorded the sounds from the trees. That sounds strange. Pat's, remember, he is an electromechanical design engineer, ex-NASA. The guy is thinking on every level, and so wonderfully outside the box. That's where we've got to go. Now, this is the sound recorded, I should just say, this is by sticking a probe in the trunk of the tree at about 1 meter up, and the other probe in the ground about 1 meter into the ground. That's the sound coming out the trees. Now, this is the analysis by Wyn Keach, IBM analyst programmer, engineering technologist at Rolls-Royce, just recently, a couple of weeks ago for us. And there is a very close match. This is the spectrum, very close to White Crow, which is also the dolphin's communication frequency, and that used by the United States Navy submarines. BBC. I'm sorry to move on like this. I knew I'd give myself a challenge. There was so much to tell you. This happened in July '89. It hit the headlines in Great Britain at the time. The sound again. This was the actual headline, UFO blast TV crew from Circle of Corn. Well, this is what happened. We were making a television documentary for BBC Television, Pat Delgado and myself. This is Pat. I've finished my interview, and I'm stood next to the sound man, bottom left. Pat is in the circle. You've got here the very moment this happened, actually, off the screen. This is Pat in the circle, and he's got a radio mic, like I've got on my belt here. Pat's got it, and suddenly I'm hearing my old friend again. And I said that, it's on the film. The sound engineer is going, "What is that?" It's the same sound. The sound is showing up, and Pat is saying, "I can feel it. It's all over me." His hair has stood up, the hair on his arms are raised. The lights come on the television camera is destroyed. The BBC guy is recording it. Second time, we got a recording. And so the sound engineer came to the television studios at Pebble Mill, as you can see bottom right, with Pat Delgado and myself, and we're talking about this extraordinary series of circumstances which was recorded on television camera before it was destroyed, and on sound before that too stopped working. And as they went to transmit it to the British people from Pebble Mill Studios in Birmingham, the entire power to the studio was lost throughout the country. And so the transmission, any of you can pick this up, it's all on the internet, you can go in and listen to it. The bleep goes in the program at the precise moment of the transmission until their generators kicked into the studios to take the program back forward. And this is the BBC sound. This is a delicate mouse. Sorry about this. Oh, all right. Again, the short bites, but it was continuous. I'm going to cut it short because of time. That's 5.2 kilohertz in audible frequency. We're looking real close matching here. 6th of July 1995, 10 p.m. What happened? Oh, okay. It's kind of really important. I don't know whether you can give me minutes here, can you? Are we in a position to give me 5? I do apologise, but it's kind of really important to bring us into the end of this. 2 circles connected by a loop, put in there by researchers known to me. It was done to blind test the biology that was being done, the plant analysis research in this country, and testing reaction of researchers as to what they saw, what they felt. I had nothing to do with it other than I do know the people that did this. And they told me they did it the day that it was done. This was at 10 p.m., made by people. Now watch what happened. This was the next morning, 12 hours later. 2 more circles have appeared in that field, not man-made, where the chlorophyll, you heard this also in the previous UFO presentation. The chlorophyll had been removed in these circles, and it's not just circles. These circles, with respect to that was man-made, now form a perfect equilateral triangle. The major axis through the man-made, the 2 man-made, cut the exact center point of the baseline of the new arrivals. So the second event was absolutely aware of the first. And we have a symbol, which I believe is of importance. In the field next door, nothing to do with the people that made those 2 little circles, is a monster. This monster appeared in the field right next door as they were doing it, or the same night, that they had nothing to do with. And it too referenced to chlorophyll-free areas in that field. Exactly. Center of the design, which cannot be seen at ground level by day, and sure as hell by night. But it's referenced, positioned, located with accuracy. And that's it from the map to show you the placement. That's not unusual. This is another large design positioned in the landscape with respect to the watershed, the water runoff of the chemicals that we are eating. This is the chemical wash-off patterning that is created that can be seen from high elevations, and the design referencing dead center. And again, this is a Roman road from London to Bath, which can't be seen at ground level. The design, dead center. That's a Roman road. This is Tai Chi instructor Graham Pritchard, who decided to make crop circles. I'm not going into the reasons why he did. This is the design he drew with his brother and said, we're going to make this, we're going to test it out, we're going to do all these kind of things with Tai Chi, and we're going to make it at Barbary Castle in Wiltshire. His brother fell ill. But that appeared anyway, in the very field they planned to put it. They had nothing to do with it. Same night, same field, same design. How far are we pushing credibility here? This is a journalist, Ned Pamphilon, worked for Hospital Radio in England, 1994. He went in with circle makers. They are well known for it in London, making wonderful crop circles, and witnessed, and you can listen to his audio on the internet. I had it with me, we don't have time to play it. Witnessing for himself these bizarre flashes of light that just come out of nowhere. In their nighttime making the circle, they went back a second day to finish it, and they have the same thing happen again. These flashes of light, no lightning, no cumulonimbus clouds, calm conditions. I've seen this myself. My mum and dad were with me on one occasion, broad daylight. The dog stepped back, a flash of light out of nowhere, and all I'm doing is measuring a crop circle. And so we measured the brains of many, many people with the very scientist who was right in front of me, Masahiro Kahada, the IBVA system that he invented. It's in many hospitals in this country. And a wonderful piece of technology which has gone way further down the road now, measuring the brains. If there's something that we are interacting with, or it is interacting with us, is there anything that we can measure? Is there anything we can get our handle on that connects this thing together? Well, we had dowsers. This was Richard Andrews, who has unfortunately now passed. Richard did some great work. And I was wired up myself with the dowsing. This is what we found. A trained eye will pick this out, and we're not going to hang around on it. Is an increased alpha spike when the dowsing rods, those wonderful things, the dowsing rods, also denied by many people, the party trick of which it is not, the dowsing rods that detect water detect many other things. So the rod moves and tells us the direction of the crop circle on its perimeter, and at the same time, there's an alpha tweak, little peak, on both right and left-hand side of the brain. There's examples where a very unusual, Masahiro would be better talking to this than I, there's a coherence between both sides of the brains that have been measured there. This is also of interest, and I think this kind of begins to hone into it a little bit. Here's an array of individuals, an array of interests, dowsers, non-dowsers, believers, skeptics. I hate that term, by the way, of which I've just used. See how it gets to you, doesn't it? My friend here, who some of you will know, Reg Presley of the Trogs, Wild Thing, You Make My Heart Sing. Well, he is my buddy, and here he is. He's an artist. Well, there might be something in here now. When we meditate, when we find the alpha waves, and we work with the alpha waves in our minds, something special happens. This woman is Isabel Kingston at the bottom. Now just look at the graph that we have here for her. This is in and around the circles. Now this person practices meditation. Kind of important. It's just like a muscle, you know. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And so, jumping from one thing to another, to kind of close here. This was from the media investigation of crop circles. John McNish, ex-BBC Television, now has his own business, putting together the final documentary on the crop circles and writing a book which was going out with the television documentary. The answer is here. And the answer, John thought, was they're all made by people, and the story Doug and Dave have told you is true. Until minutes, just moments from finalizing his script, this conversation came out. This is Doug and Dave with John there. I can't explain it. Dave can't explain it. This is Doug of the Doug and Dave team, the senior citizens who said they make crop circles. Dave can't explain it either. But when we're sitting in the field and looking at the whole thing, that feeling comes through us. That feeling of mystery, that feeling of, why are we here at all? There was a long silence as Doug sat staring at me. Then Dave picked up. Doug used to say to me, sometimes, while we were out and we'd just done one, meaning made a crop circle, why do we do it? And we could never explain that certain thing. And Doug used to say, do you think there's something that makes us? And that did, and still does, really get to us. Were we being told to almost go out and make them? I know it sounds crazy. Well, you know, to be frank with you, it doesn't to me at all. We are part of this phenomenon. Whether by accident or not, we are now engaged in a social experiment. Whether that was engineered by somebody, somewhere, or whether it happened by accident, that's where we now are. The only way we can take this forward is to drop the fences, I believe. There was more, by the way, to the presentation. I'm going to hold it here, though, because of the time factor. I really do feel that we are directly involved in this, and that it is our positioning from where we have just come, an acknowledgement and a realization of how we got here, with all that spin, with all that distortion, with fighting wars that didn't need to be fought, and knowing the next one's coming if we don't do something about it. All of that needs now to be placed right in front of us and people who represent us, because the future will only be if we understand men. I'm sorry to say this, I am myself of the male sect, I hope you can see. Men in particular need to be able to use the word, understand the word, love, and know what it's about, because there lies the future. Right there. It is as simple as that. There is so much going on here, but it's axes down, forward together, ahead. Thanks very much. Thank you. Do we take questions? Is that what happens, or?
Maybe only 20% are made by the circle makers. Is that true?
The statement you've made is not true. The full statement, you've got part of it right. The full statement, the correct statement, is that in the year 2000, when I was being funded by Lawrence Rockefeller to look specifically at people making crop circles, during the period of the 1999 and the year 2000, and only in southern England, that's the part that you didn't say, and I'm just giving you the information. Yes, I did conclude that based upon the information we had, the undercover work that was done, concluded that 20% we could find no explanation for, 80% was almost certainly made by people. Yeah.
But that's changed now. You think most of them are made by the circle makers.
Sorry.
You now think that most of them aren't being made by the circle makers themselves.
Now you believe that the vast majority are human-made.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. But you know, this is, if I may, Steve, this is real important. And I'll tell you why it is. Because the wrong question has been asked. And I was as responsible as anybody for asking it. If the question is, are they real or are they man-made, then we're going to be disappointed. That's my finding, and I'm not here to convince you. But if the question is, whoever made them, and half of it I've shown you today, if they were all made by people, and this bizarreness is going on around them, the question is, what is the bizarreness? That's the question. The question that we have to, within the research fraternity, I mean, again, just put it out as it is. I have people here. I come with an open heart. I want to work with everybody. And there are individuals who know me well here that are ducking their heads rather than just simply look at me. And the reason why is because of the hate mail that I had following the statement that you have repeated that's being fed back that Colin Andrews thinks most of them are made by people. Well, you heard the full context of how I corrected you. It was in the 2-year period only that very hard-hitting, thorough work was done at many levels for us to learn, okay, what's the difference? Where's the division? And what we got out of that in the last 9 years, since all the acrimony that goes with it, is, well, he thinks they're all... It's not the research. The research is consciousness. And the people that... Here's something else, and I think I make my point here. Mm-hmm. The bizarreness about what has happened to researchers involved in the research, is happening to the people making them. There is the nugget. That says, in this era of honesty with a lack of spin, we are on all sides of the equation involved. What is happening to you is happening to you. So what's the common denominator? It's the fact that we're interactive and interacting and creating our own reality. We are creating our own reality. If we want war, we will have war. If we want half of the research community to be against the other half, we'll have it. If we want to move forward in a new world of honesty with hope and compassion for one another, we can have it. And that's what I say today. We're there.